I would invite our colleagues, the Justice and Judge Elisa, to stay with us, because now we move to very important segment in the program, a moment when we recognize the very best among us and those that have contributed the most among those that have contributed the most. And we selected for the Nicholas Robinson Award on Environmental Law two colleagues from Africa that don't require any introduction. I asked my dear colleague and friend, Professor Christina Voigt, to introduce Elizabeth Mrema, although Elizabeth Mrema, my dear sister, doesn't need any introduction. And I have the task to introduce my colleague, Professor Professor Ali Mekouar. But let's begin with the introduction of Elizabeth Mrema. But before we move to this introduction that is unnecessary, let me say that we also have with us Professor Nicholas Robinson. And when I proposed this new award of WCEL to our colleagues in the steering committee, it was unanimously accepted and celebrated, because in Professor Nicholas Robinson, we see a giant of environmental law, somebody that has inspired different generations and continue inspiring younger and younger generations. I don't know where he gets all the energy, but he is everywhere. And we are beneficiaries of this state of mind, but also state of the body of being in many places at the same time. But most importantly, he is with us, the judges, the law professors, every time we speak about environmental law, every time we write about environmental law. So, Professor Nicholas Robinson, many thanks for everything you have done. And this, in Mexico City, we presented for the first time the award. Intentionally, we didn't inform him. We wanted this to be a surprise that he would learn afterwards. But after Mexico City, it's not a secret anymore. We can't surprise you. So that's the reason why we invited you to be with us today. Professor Christina Voigt. I also have the pleasure, and I'll ask him immediately after the two introductions to say a few words, to share with us those introductory remarks. Our colleague and new friend, Ayman Cherkaoui, the coordinator of this important Congress. So first, Professor Voigt, then I will say a few words about Professor Mekouar, and then Ayman Cherkaoui will wrap up this those introductory remarks. Professor Voigt.
Thank you so much. It is with tremendous pleasure and honor to present the first award of today, the first Nicholas Robinson Environmental Law Reward, to our dear friend and long-standing member of the WCEL Steering Committee, Elizabeth Mrema. Mrema. Elizabeth, it's wonderful to see you here with us. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for your participation, for your dedication, and for your long-standing work for the IUCN World Commission on Environmental Law. You're not just a steering committee member, you crucially and very importantly shaped the work and the direction of the Commission for as long as you've been involved with it. Now, I guess Elizabeth doesn't really need much introduction, but I'll do it anyways. Elizabeth Mrema is currently the Executive Secretary of the Convention on Biological Diversity. And how many times did we already talk about the convention and the very, very important work that is currently ongoing on the negotiations of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, the agreement for the planet and the people. One of the most important work that is currently ongoing and which is under Elizabeth's supervision, basically. Elizabeth also has a long-standing history with the United Nations Environment Program in Nairobi in Kenya, where she worked for over 2 decades and lastly was the director of the Law Division of UNEP. But prior to joining the Law Division, she has worked as the Deputy Director of the Ecosystems Division, if I get this right. And she has also been acting director of the same division prior to chairing or being the director of the division. She was appointed as executive director or secretary of several international conventions already in 2009. She was appointed as executive secretary of the Secretariat of the Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals, CMS, for those of you who know the convention. She was the acting executive secretary of the ASCOBANS and the interim executive secretary of the Gorilla Agreement to the convention as well. All of these conventions were based in Bonn, so she spent some time in Bonn in Germany, and she held the positions of the executive secretary until 2012 when she moved to Kenya. In all of these portfolios, Elizabeth has been overseeing the effective development of conservation policies on migratory animals globally, as well as, very importantly, the implementation of a number of specific species agreements covering several geographical areas. She has, over the years, played different roles in UNEP. I already mentioned a couple of them. She was also the coordinator of capacity building and compliance and enforcement projects. Again, legal issues that we have been discussing various times throughout the course of this Congress. She was the senior legal officer and chief of the Multilateral Environmental Agreements, MEA's support and cooperation branch in what was then called the Division of Environmental Conventions. And then later she was the principal legal officer and the chief of the Biodiversity, Land Law and Governance branch of that division. Now, prior to joining UNEP, Elizabeth has worked with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Tanzania and the International Cooperation of the United Republic of Tanzania. And she left there as a counselor and senior legal consultant, where she worked for the ministry. During her time with the ministry in her home country, Tanzania, she also was a lecturer in public international law and in diplomacy. And she worked at the Tanzania Center for Foreign Relations and Diplomacy. But as if this is not enough, she also worked as pro bono visiting lecturer at different law schools, University of Nairobi Law School, and also at the International Development Law Organization in Rome, in Italy. As a background, or Elizabeth's background is a lawyer, but she is also a career diplomat with a law degree from the University of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, where she's from, but also with an LLM from the Dalhousie University in Canada, and postgraduate diploma in international relations and diplomacy, also from the University of, the Center of Foreign Relations and Diplomacy in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. She also is a published writer. She has published several articles and publications on different aspects of environmental law, environmental compliance, enforcement of conventions, multilateral environmental agreement, negotiation tools, handbooks and guidelines, and so forth. In 2007, she received the first ever UNEP-wide Best Manager of the Year award for exceptional performance and dedication towards achieving the goals of UNEP. And her exceptional performance and dedication apparently applies to everything she does, not just to UNEP, but also to the work, as I mentioned initially, for the IUCN World Commission on Environmental Law. Elizabeth, it's our great pleasure to award you with the Nicholas Robinson Environmental Law Award. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I really feel humbled by all that introduction. And I would like to correct my friend Justice Antonio that I'm not the very best of the environmental lawyers in the region or global. I'm just one of those many others in that group. But let me continue with my thanks, and delighted to see after a long while, Ali Mekouar, gladly to see you though virtually. Nicholas Robinson, it is my honor to receive this award in your name, but to distinguish learned brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, let me greet you all in the name of leadership and sustainability in environmental law in Africa. When I received the communication a few days ago that I was going to be awarded the WCEL Nicholas Robinson Environmental Law Award, at first reading, I thought was the usual request for me to be part of a panel or jury to identify the best recipient for the award for this year, as I've had such a privilege in several different environmental related awards. On a second and proper reading, with my eyes wide open, only to realize, no, I was actually the one to receive it. I soon began shivering, goosebumps on my body, and virtually shocked. Had to read it few times to confirm that my big glass-covered eyes are not cheating me. At that point, and after deep thoughts, I concluded that if the award was really meant for me, then it is not for me on behalf of my past 3 decades generation, but it is actually for me on behalf of all learned brothers and sisters from Africa and beyond. Why did I say so or think so? Because these are those whom we have worked together over the years in many ways to make what Africa is today, as far as development, nurturing, implementation, and enforcement of environmental law is. No way I could make a difference alone in a continent as vast as Africa, with all its abundance of natural and other resources, all of which are key to its development, for which natural resources management laws and institutional frameworks are conditional sine qua non for its successes and or failures. From my part, I'm thankful for the organization which I have had the privilege to work with for more than 2.5 decades, and that is the United Nations Environment Program, which gave me this ample opportunity with the support of many of you, even in this Congress, and those not with us here to shape the development and implementation of environmental law in Africa, and in fact, beyond the continent. Equally, before joining UNEP, with my government, the United Republic of Tanzania, first as the State Council, later for decades, as Kristen had mentioned, as a foreign service diplomat, both prepared and sharpened my skills, which have been instrumental in my future career to date. Here, not forgetting my childhood growth under the slopes of Mountain Kilimanjaro, with its natural abundance, which have also, unfortunately, over the years, seen how environmental challenges have impacted the environment around it. All these attributes are what have brought me this far, for which I'm sincerely thankful for this recognition. Looking back, almost 50 years ago, when UNEP was established in 1972, and even 20 years later, with the first Rio Summit, or the Earth Summit on Environment and Development in 1992, which also gave birth to 3 Rio Conventions, the Climate Change, Desertification, and Biodiversity, to date, where Africa was then and where it is today, as far as development of environmental law in the continent is concerned, has been a subject of many publications in books and articles. One can only clearly observe a pattern of positive developments and successes over the years. Of course, as with global environmental difficulties, equally, Africa is not an exception, with many challenges to still work on and resolve. When environmental law program began in UNEP, especially after the Earth Summit, and soon after, thanks to the government of Netherlands for the initiative then, and later joined by other 6 donors, supported a regional-wide law program. The program was on the development and implementation of environmental law in Africa, including institutional building, that has since witnessed a different state of environmental laws in Africa. This program, many of you will recall, saw the power of building and strengthening indigenous capacities of environmental lawyers in the continent. This was then done through long-term encouragement to lawyers in the continent to undertake higher studies and specialties in environmental law subjects, short-term courses organized under the program, on-the-job training and support, as well as internships with several UN entities, to mention but some. Thanks to Professor Nicholas Robinson, the WCEL Emeritus Chair, and whose name we are associated with the award for all his teachings on environmental law subjects, that together with UNEP published training materials, which among others continue to be used to date, not just by UNEP, but across the world. The continent and beyond continues to benefit his vast expertise and commitment on environmental law. Of course, I cannot forget Justice Antonio Benjamin, who on pro bono basis was instrumental in building the legal capacities of experts from and in the 5 Portuguese-speaking countries in Africa, in terms of both literally teaching them, sharing with them relevant legal materials in the language, including helping with translation of important regional and bilateral agreements, then not available in Portuguese, but he did them for them. Elisa, I hope you are aware. Many thanks to Justice Antonio for his personal commitment to these countries and several others, which I'm sure it is treasured to date. These capacity buildings and enhancement activities led to the development of several homegrown national-owned framework environmental laws, as well as sectorial laws and regulations in many countries in Africa, led by their own legal and other resource management experts. The results which we are witnessing to date is better appreciation and enforcement of those statutes at national level. Likewise, this led to the establishment and active to date of an association of environmental law lecturers in Africa with a journal on different subjects on environmental law from the continent, written by the national and regional environmental law lecturers and experts. And this led also to a number of national environmental law associations at country level. Yes, in some cases, while national experts took the lead, their hands were held with the support of international legal experts, but many times with preference made to regional experts, again with the objective of further strengthening national and regional indigenous expertise. Today, I can say with confidence that Africa no longer depends on what I say, flying in or flying out consultancies. Instead, use them for sharing experiences, precedents, and learn on what and how others may have tackled different or common environmental problems. Consequently, over time, a cadre of national legal environmental experts has been built and strengthened in the continent and very active to date, as we have seen and witnessed even during these 3 days of the Congress. These experts do take the lead and responsibilities to manage and draft on their own different environmental laws and regulations for their countries. I'm equally certain that many of you present in this Congress are doing so for your countries or the region, and kudos to you all. For many of you, especially those who are as old as me or older, I can likewise confess with certitude that at the time you took your studies in an institute of higher learning, especially those who studied in Africa, majority, if not all of us, at that time did not, our universities, offer environmental law as a subject, be it a mandatory course or an optional course. I'm one of those who learned the subject much later in life as I worked on the matters over the past many years and not at the university. I know many of you are as well like me. For several such institutes, and thanks for the cooperation and forward-looking support shown by some academicians and researchers then, we were able to jump all academic hurdles to get the subject mainstreamed and incorporated into several universities' curricula. Accordingly, curricula were developed based on national and regional needs, and thus used to introduce environmental law or specific sectorial laws, legal subjects in the curricula at many universities. For several universities, the subject has since graduated from being an optional to a mandatory course, and with many universities already offering specialized programs on it at master's and or postgraduate levels. I would be very surprised if to date there may still be universities not offering environmental related law courses in Africa. Such similar development is evident with regards to environmental related institutional building and enhancement. Virtually from almost nothing by the early 1990s, all countries in Africa to date have ministries or departments responsible primarily for the environment and or combined with other environmental sectorial entities, either fully fledged ministries or under the president's office or Prime Minister's office or the like. Which of the different or optional location of the ministry is better than the other is a subject of another separate debate. With the highlight given to climate change in recent years, we also notice a global move of either having ministries of climate change either as fully fledged or as part of the environment portfolio, or vice versa, or part of ministries of finance and or planning and the like. But the COVID-19 pandemic, among other environmental challenges, has clearly demonstrated that the world is currently faced with three triple crises, namely climate change, nature or biodiversity, and desertification on one hand, or for UNEP, climate change, nature, and pollution. No matter what angle one looks at each of the three, it is crystal clear that all are intrinsically interconnected and that one cannot be solved in silo without appropriate integration of the others in a whole government and whole society sector approach. Clearly, our relationship and interference with nature needs to change immediately if we do not want to see more pandemics and even probably more serious in future. Therefore, we should not be surprised to see a different movement in national environmental institutional architecture in the future because of the acknowledgement of the intrinsic nature of interconnections between different environmental pillars. Legal fraternity in Africa should be proud for leading the world in empowering the judiciaries on environmental law matters. I stand to be corrected, but as far as I'm aware, the first training program to expose judges to environmental law matters was the one held in Kenya in 1996 under the UNEP leadership. To complement it, it was accompanied by a series of targeted and thereafter shared publication compiling framework environmental laws, sectorial environmental laws like environmental impact assessments and others, as well as jurisprudence of judicial decisions relating to environmental issues. As a result of the latter, they formed the foundation for the development and enrichment of what we know today, tripartite partnership between UNEP, FAO, and IUCN in what is available at www.ecolex.org, a gateway for environmental law, which I trust you are all familiar with. Much as many judges at the time criticized us vehemently, and I'm saying so because I have judges in the audience, that judges cannot be trained as they interpret the law and thus know better. Many with time, including the critics, came back and admitted that they thought they knew it all, but in fact, that was not the case. We immediately began to see the impact created by this and more trainings that followed on the development and nature of adjudicated judicial decisions on environmental related matters. It is in fact this program that exposed many unknown then of landmark cases on environment, especially from the Asia region. It is equally this program that was soon after adapted, emulated globally through different targeted regional programs and later to global ones through the lead role by UNEP. Not only that, but it is also these lessons and experiences gained over time that have recently, through WCEL patronage and the lead role with strong engagement by UNEP, led to the establishment of the Global Judicial Institute on the Environment, where judges are currently able to share, exchange their judicial decisions, and learn from each other. Furthermore, this development continues to flourish through the increasing number of specialized courts and tribunals or chambers dedicated squarely on environmental law matters, clearly again showing the growing importance of the subject matter by the judiciaries that began in Africa but expanded globally. You may wonder why I've gone to such a length but short expose, I suppose, to show where environmental law in Africa was then and is today and continues to grow. It is because I feel proud and delighted to be personally part of the roadmap and the long journey yet to be completed for the last 2.5 decades in building and strengthening institutions and expertise in the continent for the development, compliance, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws and institutional building. It is for this reason that I began by saying that I'm receiving this WCEL Nicholas Robinson Environmental Award with a sense of humor and honor, not just for myself, but for the entire environmental legal fraternity in the continent. All of them and my UNEP colleagues have been champions with whom we have been together in many ways all along through this long and meandering journey, but worthwhile opportunity for the benefit of the continent and beyond. Unfortunately, God has rested some of those many individuals who had equally been part and parcel of this journey and instrumental in the growth and nurturing of the World Commission of Environmental Law. I would like to specifically remember the late Professor Wolfgang Burghene and his wife, Dr. Françoise Burghene, as well as late Professor Charles Odidi Okidi. For those who may not be aware, the Burghenes, the two of them, Mr. and Mrs., were the drafters of the 1968 Africa-Algiers Convention on Nature and Natural Resources, the first overarching framework convention on environment at the time. The two, together with Professor Okidi, were responsible, me too being part, for what we have today as the 2003 revised Maputo Convention on the Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. I'm delighted to see the Maputo Convention mentioned in the declaration and hope it will steer momentum on that convention. This comprehensive and framework revised version, the Maputo Convention, is in fact like an updated convention on biological diversity for Africa. So it is very important for the continent. But before I end my remarks, and thanks for the award, let us have a minute silence in the honor of the three giants of environmental law, and particularly contributed so immensely for the continent, to remind us all their contribution in the development of environmental law in Africa. With your permission, 1 minute silence. Once again, thank you for the honor bestowed on me and through me to the legal fraternity in Africa. Thank you.
To Professor Christina Voigt and to Elizabeth Mrema for your very inspiring words. I have to say that Professor Voigt didn't exaggerate 1 millimeter on what she said about Elizabeth Mrema. And one of the qualities required for being part of the club of the best, creme de la creme, is that you have to be modest. If you are arrogant, egocentric, you don't deserve to be part of that group. It's another category. I think there are several other categories for this type of people. So it's Elizabeth Mrema, the little girl from Moshi, at the foot of the Kilimanjaro, that climbed the Kilimanjaro mountain of environmental law. Many thanks for that, and many thanks to Professor Christina Voigt. Since we did mention and paid a tribute to Wolfgang and also to Françoise and Charles Okiri, I would like to remind that Robert Wabunoha is also a disciple of Professor Charles Okiri. And Nick Robinson would immediately remember that if Wolfgang were with us, and he's probably is, he would say, okay, thanks for the 1 minute, but let's get back to work. That's what he would say in the distinct manner that we all knew Wolfgang from those types of comments. Now, Professor Mohammed Ali Mekouar. First of all, don't think that we are celebrating Professor Mekouar because by chance this Congress is happening in Morocco. We are celebrating a Moroccan that is a member, a distinguished member, again, of the very best of our international and comparative environmental law family. Morocco has given so many scholars to the world. I have my own list, but perhaps instead of linking Professor Mekouar to a number of male scholars from medieval times to more recent times, it would be more appropriate to link you to one of the most extraordinary places that I find in Morocco, which is the oldest library in the world, at the University of Al Qarawin in Fez. We all love books, but the ones that are close friends know that I'm surrounded by books. I'm dominated by books. And behind this library, a center of knowledge and its foundation, it's not a man, it is a woman, Fatima Al-Firi, who in 859, it's not 18, but 859, founded this extraordinary library in Fez. I think this is the best way to explain why we are paying a tribute to a Moroccan today that is not from Fez, from Casablanca, but it is from Morocco. Professor Mekouar is vice president of the International Center for Comparative Environmental Law. He is a distinguished professor in Europe, originally former professor of law at the University of Casablanca. He doesn't look like, but he retired in 2015. And I met him when he was still working for FAO in different positions. As Elizabeth He has worked pretty much everywhere, not at UNEP, but at another UN organization, FAO. He also retired from FAO in 2012. He retired formally because we have been working together with FAO since then. He has advised so many countries on environmental law, energy law, forest law, wildlife, protected areas, Algeria, Angola, Benin, Bulgaria, Burkina Faso, Burundi, Cambodia, Cameroon, Cape Verde, Chad, Comoros, Congo, and now moving to my region, Costa Rica, Côte d'Ivoire, Cuba, Congo Kinshasa, Djibouti, Gabon, now Eastern Europe, the Caucasus, Georgia, then back to Africa, Guinea-Bissau, Haiti, in my region, Honduras, in my region, Jordan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Asia, Laos, Madagascar, Mali, Mauritania, Morocco, of course, Niger, Asia, Pakistan, Paraguay, my neighbor, Romania, Europe, Rwanda, Saudi Arabia, Senegal, Sudan, Syria, Tanzania. I'm not so sure whether he knows Moshi. Syria, I already said Togo, Tunisia, Turkey, Uzbekistan, Vanuatu in Oceania, and Yemen, and many more. He has published enormously, and I will not list here the publications, books, chapters, reports, articles. He's a laureate of the Elizabeth Howe Prize for Environmental Law. And as Elizabeth Mrema, we are paying a tribute not just to an outstanding scholar, but we are paying a tribute. It's an award to an outstanding human being. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. Is she or he a true believer? And here we have a true believer, two true believers. True believers in nature, true believers in future generations, and true believers on the environmental rule of law. I'm delighted, Professor Ali Mekouar, to have an opportunity to introduce you, when it's absolutely unnecessary, as a recipient of the WCEL Nicholas Robinson Environmental Law Award. Please join me in thanking Professor Mekouar.
Thank you very much, co-chairs Justice Benjamin, Professor Voigt, and Dr. Cherkaoui. I'm truly humbled for the great honor of receiving this distinguished award. Thank you very much, dear Antonio, for the kind introduction and words of friendship. And many thanks as well to those who have generously conferred the award on me. I must confess that until this week, I was unaware of the recent creation of this award. So, needless to say that, like Elizabeth, I was extremely surprised when I was informed 3 days ago that I was granted the award. And I just asked myself, why me? And I still don't have a reply. I thought that the award is an appreciation of the achievements of my country, which is also the country. But you did say that it is not the case. Still, I would like to think that this is also a recognition of Morocco and of its universities, including the Cherkaoui University that you mentioned. And I must just add a little note, is that I was born actually in Fez, where I grew up until 16 years old. And my father used to teach at the University of the Cherkaoui. And when I was a kid, I used to accompany him in the gardens of the University of the Cherkaoui in Fez with flowers and fountain of water flowing in the channels of the gardens of that university. So I have very fond memories of my childhood in Fez. And of course, then I moved to Casablanca, where I studied at the University of Rabat and then Casablanca. The fact that the award is named after Nick Robinson is a reason for pride to me, as Nick is one of the most highly regarded, eminent professors of environmental law worldwide. Dear Nick, thank you so much for your countless outstanding contributions to the development and teaching of environmental law over more than 5 decades in all parts of the world, including Africa. A further reason for pride is to receive the award at the same time as Elizabeth Mrema. Elizabeth is a star of environmental law, not only in the African continent, but in the entire world. Thus, I have no doubt as to why Elizabeth was selected as a recipient of the award, unlike me. Dear Elizabeth, my sincere congratulations on this most deserved recognition of the myriad of accomplishments you achieved in progressing environmental law, both globally and throughout Africa. Let me also pay a tribute to you, Justice Benjamin, as the chair of the Environmental Commission, the World Commission of Environmental Law of IUCN. I consider you to be a true friend of Africa and a vibrant promoter of environmental law in Africa. Antonio, yesterday you rightly recalled in your introductory remarks that Africa is your top, or has been your top priority over the course of your mandate. I saw you at work, I can attest to that. For instance, in Abidjan in 2013, when you arranged a meeting in the parliament to advocate for the ratification of the Maputo Convention by Côte d'Ivoire. As a result, these countries soon became a party to the convention. Dear Antonio, thank you so much for your very able and fruitful advocacy efforts to advancement of environmental law in Africa. And thank you also for facilitating networking among us Africans also. It is through this Congress that I was fortunate to meet Ayman virtually for the first time and to listen to various other brilliant African colleagues also for the first time. Let me now switch to French as it's easier for me. Dans les minutes qui me restent, je voudrais dire simplement quelques mots de gratitude, sans parler de substance de droit de l'environnement qui a été magistralement couvert par Elisabeth Mrema. Je pensais auparavant faire quelques suggestions dans la perspective de la décennie cruciale qui s'ouvre pour le droit de l'environnement en Afrique. Mais ces propositions ont déjà été formulées par mon ami Yacouba Savalogo en ce qui concerne l'opérationnalisation de la Convention de Maputo, et Elisabeth vient à l'instant d'appuyer ces propositions. Et aussi par la professeure Saouli de Madagascar quant aux besoins de l'Afrique de se doter d'un accord continental sur l'information, la participation et la justice environnementale. Je les remercie donc pour ces propositions que j'appuie pleinement. J'ajouterai seulement un rêve, parce qu'à mon âge, on peut encore rêver un peu. C'est que cet accord sur la démocratie environnementale puisse être adopté ou au moins être élaboré en 2023 à l'occasion du 60e anniversaire de l'organisation panafricaine, qui a vu le jour, comme on le sait, en 1963. Je passe donc à l'expression de ma gratitude à l'égard de personnes remarquables que j'ai eu la chance de connaître, des personnes qui ont marqué, voire infléchi mon parcours de vie. Elles sont très nombreuses et je me limiterai à en évoquer quelques-unes. Je citerai d'abord Mohamed Bennani, qui a été mon doyen à la faculté de droit de Casablanca. Lorsque je suis devenu professeur titulaire en 1980, j'ai exprimé le souhait d'enseigner le droit de l'environnement. À l'époque, le droit de l'environnement était considéré comme un droit mineur et il était concurrencé par d'autres disciplines plus cotées. Mais le doyen a accepté ma requête et ainsi a démarré l'enseignement du droit de l'environnement à la faculté de droit de Casablanca en 1981 grâce à la vision du doyen Bennani. Je citerai ensuite le professeur Michel Prieur, qui est mondialement connu, un grand bâtisseur du droit de l'environnement. Il est par exemple le père du principe de non-régression en droit de l'environnement. Et il a récemment élaboré une méthodologie d'évaluation de l'effectivité du droit de l'environnement au moyen d'indicateurs juridiques. J'ai eu le privilège de côtoyer Michel Prieur pendant plus de 40 ans, notamment au sein du Centre international de droit comparé de l'environnement à Limoges, où j'ai rencontré des experts en droit de l'environnement dans de nombreux pays du monde et beaucoup appris en interagissant avec eux. Je pense aussi à 3 personnes qui, hélas, ne sont plus de ce monde, dont 2 ont déjà été citées par Elisabeth et en l'honneur de qui nous avons observé une minute de silence. Je commencerai d'abord par Alex Kiss. Alex Kiss a été l'un des premiers professeurs de droit à avoir enseigné le droit international de l'environnement dans le monde. Et j'ai suivi quelques-uns de ses cours à Strasbourg. En 1980, le PNUE a demandé à Alex Kiss de coordonner une équipe de consultants pour la préparation de ce qui allait devenir le programme de montée des vidéos pour le développement du droit de l'environnement. Et Alex m'a associé à cette équipe pour étudier l'état du droit de l'environnement en Afrique francophone. L'année suivante, lors de la conférence de montée des vidéos qui a adopté le programme en 1981, connu le juriste qui représentait la FAO à cette... Et peu après, il m'a proposé de rédiger un rapport pour la FAO. Et c'est ainsi qu'a commencé ma collaboration avec la FAO pendant plus de 3 décennies. Cela pour dire que sans Alex Kiss, je n'aurais probablement pas eu la chance de travailler avec le PNUE et avec la FAO, ni même peut-être avec WCEL. Pourquoi WCEL? Parce que en préparant l'étude que je viens de citer, je me suis heurté à la rareté de l'information disponible sur le droit de l'environnement en Afrique. À l'époque, en 1980, il n'y avait ni Internet ni Google. Alex m'a conseillé d'aller me documenter au Centre de droit de l'environnement de l'UICN à Bonn. Non seulement j'ai pu remplir ma valise de photocopies de lois africaines, mais j'ai connu 2 personnes exceptionnelles, Françoise Bourhene et Wolfgang Bourhene. Françoise dirigeait le Centre de droit de l'environnement et Wolfgang animait le Centre international de droit de l'environnement. Françoise et Wolfgang se complétaient à merveille et l'essor du droit de l'environnement dans le monde et en Afrique doit énormément à leur immense œuvre commune. Wolfgang m'a tout de suite invité à devenir membre de la commission du droit de l'environnement de l'UICN qui s'appelait CEPLA à l'époque. Et il m'a ensuite impliqué dans plusieurs projets, par exemple dans une étude collective passionnante sur les principes islamiques du droit de l'environnement, qui a été la première du genre à être publiée en 1983. Et puis avec Françoise et ses successeurs à la tête du Centre de droit de l'environnement, Charles Dileva, John Scanlon, Alejandro Isa, qui est parmi nous aujourd'hui, je crois. Et notre collaboration s'est institutionnalisée quand j'ai rejoint le bureau juridique de la FAO à travers de nombreuses activités conjointes. Elisabeth a mentionné Ecolex. Je pourrais aussi mentionner le PADELIA, le partenariat PNUE, UICN, FAO pour le développement du droit et des institutions de l'environnement en Afrique, grâce auquel justement j'ai pu travailler avec Elisabeth Mrema ainsi que d'autres juristes africains éminents comme Donald Kanyaru et Charles Okidi. Je suis donc profondément reconnaissant à toutes ces personnes et à bien d'autres encore, en particulier au sein de la FAO. Ces femmes et ces hommes m'ont transmis un héritage unique. Ils ont contribué à forger ma culture juridique, à améliorer et affiner mes approches méthodologiques pour la formulation des cadres juridiques relatifs à l'environnement dans les pays où j'ai travaillé. Avec ces collègues, j'ai réalisé que les principes fondamentaux, les principes juridiques fondamentaux auxquels nous adhérons et les valeurs éthiques qui les sous-tendent transcendent les appartenances institutionnelles. J'ai appris que ces principes et ces valeurs sont des convictions profondes communes qui guident nos écrits et nos actions, indépendamment de nos structures respectives, que nous soyons au PNUE à Nairobi, à l'UECN à Gland ou à Bonn, ou encore à la FAO à Rome. Hier, Antonio a utilisé une métaphore culinaire savoureuse, celle du couscous, pour illustrer l'interpénétration des cultures. Cette métaphore vaut également pour le droit. Le droit est lui aussi transculturel. Les systèmes juridiques du monde s'alimentent et se fécondent mutuellement. Par exemple, la loi ougandaise sur l'environnement de 2019, qui a été évoquée plusieurs fois hier, consacre les droits de la nature. Cette innovation juridique est le fruit d'une conceptualisation récente des droits de la nature dans diverses régions du monde. Par exemple, autour de la cosmogonie andine de la Pachamama, ou terre-mère, qui a été intégrée dans la Constitution de l'Équateur et dans des lois de Bolivie. Les droits de la nature s'expriment de plus en plus sous des formes similaires dans d'autres contextes, et on assiste aujourd'hui à leur rayonnement progressif dans la législation et dans la jurisprudence de plusieurs pays. On pourrait donc soutenir, sans trop exagérer, qu'il y a un peu de Pachamama dans la loi ougandaise. En d'autres termes, notre africanité, c'est aussi notre mondialité. C'est dire en un mot que le droit de l'environnement est universel. Pour finir, à mon tour, je voudrais féliciter vivement la Fondation Mohamed VI pour la parfaite organisation de ce congrès et la remercier du fond du cœur pour nous avoir si généreusement accueillis. Many thanks, co-chairs.
Well, before, many thanks, Ali, for your, I think it's a journey, not a personal journey, but a journey of environmental law in Africa and globally. Just a side comment for those that are watching us. I had no idea that Ali was born in Fes and that his father was a professor at the University of Al-Qarawiyyin. So this just happened. There is no coincidence, as you know. Before I ask Ayman Cherkaoui for his wrapping up of the ceremony, I would like to invite Professor Nicholas Robinson to say a few words.
Well, thank you very much, Justice Benjamin. It's a very humbling and wonderful experience to share my academic life, if you will, with two of the world's greatest leaders in environmental law, Elizabeth Mrema and Ali Mekouar. When the IUCN Academy of Environmental Law was established, every year it gives a distinguished lecture. And the first distinguished lecturer was Professor Alexandra Kiss. It's no coincidence that the second distinguished lecturer was Ali Mekouar. And he gave the lecture at the colloquium of the Academy at the university in Nairobi, at the leadership of the environmental law program there with Charles Okidi. The fact that Africa has been the home for UNEP since the very beginning and has nurtured and sustained the mission of UNEP, which is, of course, a global mission, is extraordinary. And in the 50th anniversary of that great accomplishment and of the UN Environment Assemblies, now leadership emanating also from Nairobi, we have a confirmation that all the collective activity of Africa has been pulling together to be a beacon for how environmental law should develop globally. Africa is a true leader in international environmental law, and it comes out of the love and the connection, I would say, that every person in Africa has with the land, with the resources, with the people, with the nature. It's an intimate relationship. It hasn't been severed by overdevelopment or other pollution or other great problems. It still resonates. And I think that's extraordinary. I couldn't say more than has been said about the great career of Elizabeth Mrema. But if we look at the footsteps of those she cited, Wolfgang Borhene, who always came to Africa. He was the only one to come to every governing council meeting of UNEP since it began through his life. And Françoise Borhene-Guillemard, for them, Africa was a place of great special accomplishment in the regard for nature. So I couldn't be more pleased and happy and indeed humbled to have the IUCN World Commission on Environmental Law create this award and have it begin where I think global environmental law in a way begins, in Africa. And to have the privilege of being associated in a small way through this award with the tremendous accomplishments of Elizabeth Mrema and Ali Mekouar. Thank you very much for this wonderful confirmation of my own career. I would point out that the year Ali began his pioneering work, creating one of the first academic programs in environmental law, was about the same time I was doing the same thing at my university in New York. All of us who had to invent environmental law, as Elizabeth said, by experiencing it, not by reading it in law school or reading a book about it. We had to do it instinctively and use our best wits, our legal skills to craft this new field. And as Elizabeth said, our journey has only just begun. We've only been taking the first few steps. And I hope this encouragement that the World Commission on Environmental Law is giving through this award will speed us along that path to strengthen environmental law and see it elaborate. I share very much the sense that it is a universality. Merci beaucoup à tous.
Many thanks. Now with you, Ayman Cherkaoui.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. The impossible task that was set to me is to summarize this very inspiring flow of brilliance and life trajectories that are so transformational, have been so transformational, and continue to be so transformational for our field. Evidently, I won't be doing that. This is impossible. What I'll do instead is contribute 2 points. The first of them is actually 3 Latin words. So let me double check to make sure. Fortius. Faster, higher, and stronger. Those words are the motto of the Olympic Games that are taking place currently. And of course, both of you have encouraged us. Most grateful as African environmental lawyers and jurists and African environmentalists for your guidance, thought leadership, strong voice for all these years, and that you continue to carry forward. Thank you very much to both of you. The second thing I wanted to do is to ask if it'd be possible for the technical team to provide us with, actually they've done that. Typically in this kind of event, we would have very much wished to have both of you physically with us. Evidently, in the current context, it is quite impossible. We tend to, during those meetings, see giant faces on the screen. But I think for this particular time, it is quite fitting that we see both of you as giant faces on a giant screen, as you are clearly giants of our field. So again, we thank you for your leadership, your commitment, your inspiration, and we hope to continue to contribute to you, with you in leading and building and continue to build on your many achievements for.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ayman. It was a nice way of wrapping up this session, connecting the two colleagues, the recipients of the award, with the Olympic Games. It's also very challenging for them. I don't think they have ever seen themselves as competing at that level, but it's a great description. We could imagine a higher level of energy required, and that's precisely what the two of them have in plenty. Many thanks, Ayman, especially for that wonderful analogy.